a launching and fundraising event of the book entitled Lê Lam Sketches from the South took place in Hanoi on March the 26th, 2017. The book features 80 prominent sketches by Lê Lam, whose real name is Vũ Quốc Ái, one of the most outstanding representatives of Vietnamese art during the war to reunify the country. Born in Hanoi, Lê Lam left his family in North Vietnam for frontiers in the south, despite dangers and hardships. Before the war ended in 1975, he had created thousands of drawings that vividly depict the living and fighting of soldiers, guerrillas and residents in South Vietnam.
Những cái tập tranh ký họa của Lê Lam thì không chỉ chứa đựng những giá trị nghệ thuật mà nó còn chứa đựng cả những cái giá trị hiện thực lịch sử. Những cái bức tranh bác vẽ về người thực, việc thực, những thanh niên xung phong, những anh lính còn rất trẻ, những cái dân quân tự vệ, những cái bà má, từ những cái anh em du kích còn trẻ lắm, và có những người là bác Lam vẽ hôm trước thì là hôm sau họ đã hy sinh, không còn sống nữa.
Especially, the book Lê Lam Sketches from the South was designed by artist David Thomas, an American war veteran who was sent to South Vietnam before 1975. In 1987, he returned to Vietnam and founded the Indochina Arts Partnership, or AIP. The non-profit organization is dedicated to healing the wounds of war, as well as fostering cultural and artistic exchange between Vietnam and the United States. AIP was responsible for organizing the launching event of the book Lê Lam Sketches from the South and for raising funds to bring the publication to domestic and international audience.
Đối với tôi là tôi bất ngờ. Tôi hoàn toàn không thể nào hình dung được nó là có thể đạt được cái mức độ như thế này. Và cái cụ thể là cái quyển sách mà tôi trông thấy ra thì cũng không thể nào tưởng tượng được ra một quyển sách như thế. Hay lắm! Hay lắm!
Hello and welcome to Sharing Vietnam. Many people have quietly and wholeheartedly contributing to the development of relations between Vietnam and the United States. They have helped heal the wounds of war and nurture new partnerships in many areas, particularly arts. In our program today, we'll have a conversation with David Thomas, a U.S. war veteran and an artist who founded a major organization connecting Vietnamese and American artists. Hello, David. Thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
You have just designed a book featuring the sketches of famous Vietnamese artist Lê Lam. So, how did you meet the Vietnamese artist?
Well, I actually met his daughter first, Lien. She was one of my students. I was giving a workshop with Lê Huy Tiep at the Contemporary Art Center here in Hanoi. And she was one of our students. She's a very accomplished printmaker. And one day she said, would you come to my house for lunch? And that's when I met her father and just fell in love with his work and him, and the whole experience was incredible.
And could you tell us about the reasons for you to design the book featuring his sketches?
Well, when I walked into his house, I didn't know that her father was an artist. She kind of kept it secret from me. And I walked into his house and I saw these amazing drawings of Von Nguyen Giap and Tonak Van on the wall, these big pencil drawings. And I said, who did these? And she said, well, my father did. I said, can I see more of his work? And so I spent the next 3 or 4 hours just amazed, looking through hundreds, maybe thousands of drawings that had been meticulously kept. And one problem in Vietnam is a lot of this work from the war is not meticulously kept. It's under the bed, and a lot of that work is now deteriorating very badly. But Lê Lam's work has been cataloged and categorized and put in plastic sleeves. So it's a real treat to look through his work. And of course, being with him is just wonderful.
As an American war veteran, could you share with us your thoughts and feelings when you look at Lê Lam's pictures depicting southern Vietnam at war?
Well, particularly the portraits of these beautiful women. I was quite surprised there were so many women in the unit that he was stationed with. I later found out he was in a unit that was mostly women or completely women. So, but they had makeup on. Some of them looked like they were getting ready to go out to dinner. And some of them were soldiers with the uniform, and there's nurses, soldiers, every occupation. Lê Lam's work certainly gives you a vivid, passionate picture of the Vietnamese people he loved and worked with. It's so obvious when you look at one of his sketches, but when you look at 1,000, it's like family. Everybody is family.
What were some of the most memorable moments for you during the making of this book?
That's hard to do because every picture that I put in that book, I had selected carefully from the thousands I'd gone through at Lê Lam's house. And every time I would open the file and I'd see this beautiful face, or a woman holding another woman who was dying in her arms. And many times it would bring tears to my eyes, even though I'd seen it 10 times maybe before that, because in designing a book, you're constantly going back and forth between images, but these images have a power to them that I'd never seen. And when you asked me to pick out a particular moment, maybe when I was designing the book, I don't think of any moment, but I think of hours of joy and discovery in designing the book. I feel honored to be able to do that, to help Lê Lam with his book.
The launching event of the book, Lê Lam Sketches from the South, marked 30 years of the Indochina Arts Partnership, or IAP. The organization has brought more than 50 artists and cultural representatives from Vietnam to the United States through its residency program. Under the leadership of David Thomas, IAP organized the first exhibitions introducing Vietnamese artists to the American public after the war. The exhibitions include As Seen from Both Sides in 1991, Seven Pillars in 1994, and An Ocean Apart in 1995. The organization has formed partnership with museums, art institutions, and independent art spaces in both Vietnam and the United States. IAP has provided significant support in terms of equipment and expertise for major art schools across Vietnam, helping Vietnamese artists develop their careers domestically and internationally.
Tất cả các hệ thống máy in tranh, từ trường Đại học Mỹ thuật Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh đến trường Đại học Mỹ thuật Thành phố Huế, trường Đại học Mỹ thuật Hà Nội, Hội Mỹ thuật Việt Nam đều là những cái máy in rất là tốt của Mỹ và Việt Nam chúng ta chưa hề có. Và tôi có thể nói rằng từ khi David Thomas sang giúp đỡ Việt Nam thì trong rất nhiều lĩnh vực nghệ thuật, nhưng riêng nghệ thuật đồ họa, printmaking, ông đã làm thay đổi rất là nhiều.
The major contributions of IAP to cultural and artistic relations between Vietnam and the United States for 3 decades largely resulted from the endeavor by war veteran David Thomas. With a deep love for the land and the people of Vietnam, David has become a close friend of Vietnamese artists of different generations and a symbol of efforts to reconcile and nurture new partnership between the two countries.
David có một cái tấm lòng mà đôi khi tôi cũng nói đùa với mọi người rằng ông yêu Việt Nam nhiều khi còn nhiều hơn nhiều người Việt Nam. Và thậm chí như vợ ông, bà Jean có nói với tôi rằng nếu như mà có kiếp trước thì chính David Thomas kiếp trước là người Việt.
Well, the publication of the book marked 30 years of Indo-China Arts Partnership. So could you share with us your motivation to set up the organization and keep it going so far?
I came in '87 with a man named John McAuliffe. It was my first trip back since I left Vietnam to play Pleiku in 1970. And I saw what our government was doing, continuing to do. I thought the war ended in '75. But coming back in '87, at the height, maybe the height of the trade embargo, no diplomatic relations. So I said, I'm an artist. What can I do? And an educator. I was a professor in Boston at a small college. What can I do to try to change this policy? So I put together the As Seen by Both Sides exhibit, hoping that that would force Americans to see the Vietnamese as just like us. That exhibit, I traveled around the U.S. to 15 museums and then came here and traveled to 3, Hanoi, Da Nang, and Ho Chi Minh City. And I think it did play a role. There were thousands and thousands of articles written in newspapers and magazines and television. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun traveling around with the exhibit. But it didn't lift the embargo. It was 8 years later that we lifted the embargo. So I kept doing other projects, exhibits, books. We started bringing Vietnamese artists and students to America to kind of expose them to us and us to them. And it just 30 years went by. I don't know how it happened, but.
Looking back at the 3-decade journey of Indo-China Arts Partnership, what do you think of the contribution of IAP to the development of relations between the two countries?
Diplomats negotiate diplomatic relations. That's one of their jobs to do. That doesn't mean, just because we have diplomatic relations and we lifted the trade embargo, it doesn't mean that suddenly all Vietnamese and all Americans are going to be friends. You have to kind of re-educate both populations. And I think the arts, well, we were here before the diplomats, we'll be here during the diplomats, and probably after they leave, hopefully they'll never leave again. But the arts I think, theater, dance, visual arts are the perfect way to reunify people beyond the physical lifting of embargoes. We need that. We need our politicians to do the necessary things so that we can overcome previous mistakes.
And finally, could you share with us some information on the future of Indo-China Arts Partnership and your own activities in the coming years?
Well, because I'm not the leader anymore, I don't know exactly what the future is. I know it's going to move in new directions, and I'm 100% behind Nguyen and Tuan and their efforts and what they're doing. I want to go back to my own artwork. I did some artwork while I was directing the IAP, but the IAP was a full-time job and I was teaching, and now I want to spend the rest of my years making my own artwork. And I just completed a book about Agent Orange that was released last spring. 2 weeks after it was released, I learned that I was a victim of Agent Orange through a diagnosis with early-stage Parkinson's. So I have to deal with some medical issues now, but we have good medications that can keep me making art for many more years to come. And support Nguyen and Tuan in whatever they want to do, and hopefully give them some advice that may help them, my experience.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some touching insights.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, that's all for our Sharing Vietnam today. Hopefully, Vietnamese and American artists will have more and more opportunities to join hands in creative works and to connect the hearts and souls of the people of the two countries. Thank you so much for watching and see you again next time.